Welcome, Hastings Middle School, to your introductory lesson on the TPAC framework. I guarantee there's a lot of you looking at this first screen saying, TPAC, I've got no idea what that is. And that's my goal over the next 10 to 15 minutes, is to hopefully remedy that situation and get you to understand how you can use TPAC to impact your classroom and your teaching this year. Okay, so here is the layout of how we are going to try to implement or use TPAC throughout the course of this year, or make it a purposeful and meaningful framework with which we can use. Right now, you are doing part one of this implementation. You are watching the introductory presentation, where hopefully I will explain well enough. You can always obviously ask questions and get in contact with me if you don't understand what TPAC is all about at the end of this presentation. Number two is hopefully you will get together with your PLC at some point today and set a goal or two based on your interpretation of TPAC and how you guys might use your current curriculum or lessons that are already in place, and try to supplement that with our TPAC framework. We will be continuing to meet with our PLCs weekly like we have been doing for the past couple of years. We are just going to change the focus a little bit. We're going to change that focus into technology integration and how we can use TPAC to better enhance the lessons that we currently have and the curriculum we already use. And number four, at the end of each quarter, we are going to have some reflection time, and we're going to talk about maybe doing some cross PLC discussions about how maybe math or science or reading and language arts can mix with social studies to determine how the TPAC framework has impacted your lessons. Has it changed anything? Do we need to dive deeper? Things like that. And then at the end of the year, you'll all be filling out a Google form that will hopefully give us some solid data as to how much TPAC impacted your everyday lessons. All right, so what is TPAC? Well, what you're looking at here is the Venn diagram version. There are some other versions and some other graphic organizers out there that help to describe the TPAC model, but this is the one that I've liked looking at the most, and I think it makes the most sense for us. We all have used Venn diagrams, I would assume, either in learning or in teaching throughout the course of our years. And you can see that obviously we have three major bubbles. One bubble is content knowledge, one bubble is pedagogical knowledge, and one is technological knowledge. And how those three things are individually about the same size, and they all have about the same impact. But when we put all those things together, we've got this small area we call the sweet spot, or that area in the center that provides a really, really directed and enhanced lesson using all three of those types of knowledge to help make our students better learners. All right, so I'm breaking down these categories a little bit more specifically for you here. The content knowledge, I think this is probably the easiest one for us as teachers, because we've been doing this since we were in college and doing our curriculum and instruction classes. We've been taught about our content knowledge all the way through. We know our standards. We've been creating dynamic standards. We have been using standards to add to or take away from our existing lessons that we have in place already. So I'm not too concerned with you guys understanding what content knowledge is. I think you're pretty comfortable with that. Same with the next one of pedagogy knowledge or pedagogy knowledge. It is one that we have been kind of talked about multiple times over the course of our teaching. What are the best ways that our students can learn? What are the different levels of questioning? How can we get our students to be more than just repeaters of information and spout back information, but have some critical thinking involved in there? And what activities can we put in front of them to help make them the best learners that they can be? So then this last part, and this is the major focus of TPAC, is the technological side of things. How can we take technology and not just implement it for the sake of implementing it, but for putting it into place in the most efficient ways possible? How can I use technology to not only make my life easier, but also make my students' life easier, and make my lessons more engaging and effective to get my students to think more critically about the topic that we are trying to teach? And I've got a couple of examples listed at the back of this presentation that will hopefully make that a more clear statement to you. But obviously, to have technological knowledge, you have to know what kind of technology is out there. You have to know what technology is most appropriate for grade levels, age levels, subject areas, those kinds of things. There are different types of technologies out there for that. And then lastly, is this technology, am I using it just because I'm supposed to use it, or is this actually going to help make my lesson more enriching and more engaging for my students? So that's kind of where we want to be thinking about the technology piece. And when we come up with our TPAC goals, some of those goals may revolve simply around the finding of new tools and the examining of new tools and determining whether a tool is useful or not in a certain subject area or at a certain grade level. So think about that as you are creating your PLC goals a little bit later. This video is not designed to be watched right now. If you want to take the time and watch it right now, you definitely can, but it's about a 3 to 5 minute video just talking about the differences between the two major technological frameworks that are out there, TPAC, which we've already been mentioning at this point, and SAMR, which is more of a linear model. It doesn't mean it has to be given in a linear model. We can definitely go back and forth to different ends of the spectrum, but it's laid out in much more of a linear format. And this video just kind of describes the differences between those two models. So you can come back and watch that at a later time. So here's the first lesson example that I've got for you in dealing with how TPAC might impact an existing lesson. So I am a science teacher. So one of the lessons and one of the major concepts that we teach our students in living biology is the parts of a cell, the differences between animal and plant cells, and basically just the purpose and function of cells in general. So our lesson for a long time has looked like taking that information out of a textbook or researching out of a textbook or another external paper source, finding diagrams, copying those diagrams onto a sheet of paper, maybe breaking the students up into small groups and having them label the individual parts, learning about a part, becoming an expert on one of the functions, and then creating a presentation to go back to the class. Nothing really technologically advanced there, no real technology involved. Maybe they've drawn a poster to hold up in front of the class and it's verbal speaking in front of the class. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that lesson, but it's possible as we look through the TPAC lens that we can use technology, one, to make the students' jobs a little easier or more exciting and enjoyable for them, or also to make it more enriched. Like they might be able to dive a little deeper into those cell parts and those cell functions by researching and using some technology resources. So if we look at TPAC now, the bottom part of this, maybe instead of using a textbook, we were able to link an interactive website to our LMS. In this case, for us here in Hastings Middle School, we use Schoology right now. So maybe putting a link to an interactive website that shows animal and plant cells, and where you hover over those cells and it tells you the function of each of those cell parts. And then you could still have the groups work together either to create a check for understanding quiz. So there's some discussion back and forth about what we think the answers might be. Or you could still do the each student picking a part of the cell, but instead of creating a poster or diagramming it out by hand, maybe they personify those cell parts and we give them a recording device and they turn it into either a little skit or they turn it into a conversation that's being had between the cell parts, like what their job and what their role is in the cell themselves. And then lastly, maybe to take it even to a higher level, maybe you can set up kind of a debate, even end up having like a Padlet or another type of technology where the students can put their opinion as to why they feel animal cells differ from plant cells. Why do animal cells have certain things in them that plant cells do not? Or why do plant cells have a cell wall and animal cells do not? Those kinds of concepts and things. So technology can enhance that and make it's still the same lesson. We're still teaching the same learning target, those ideas, but we can enhance that from that. The other one I don't have listed here, but it just popped into my head as we were discussing earlier about a math lesson in terms of dealing with typical math facts, multiplication facts, things like that. And oftentimes we've gone through and done flashcards and we've just pounded it into the kids. But what if we made it into more of an interactive, gamified scenario where we put those math facts into a game or a contest where the students are not only learning their facts and quizzing themselves on it, but they're able to maybe use an animated character, or maybe they're competing against a classmate to help that happen. And so the technology didn't really change. We're still practicing those math facts, but we're making it more enjoyable and more engaging for the students. So that's how we want you guys to be viewing TPAC at this point. How can we use technology and use this framework to help us focus in and hone in on what we already do, but just make it a little bit more efficient? All right, here are the resources. So another thing you can do is go to the sites that are listed here to give you a little bit more knowledge as well. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, again, make sure you are contacting me and letting me know if there's anything I can help you with.